Are you losing sleep over that one person that's costing you time and money? I manage a team too, and I know how impactful it can be when somebody is not performing or they're off sick all the time. And it's really worrying as a business owner, as a people manager, how we deal with that. There's so many negative stories out there as well about employment law and how you can't dismiss people and how protected people are. But the good news is, as a business owner, you can do something about it. You can dismiss your problem employees. You've just got to do it the right way. Employment law does work for both sides. It is designed so that we can dismiss people when we need to. And in this video, I'm going to tell you the 5 legally fair reasons for dismissal and why they are so important, because it matters in terms of what process you follow. It matters in terms of what you document and how you deal with things. But it's also really important that you understand what the problem really is. Get to the root of it so that we can put you in the right place to be able to deal with it. So let's go through those 5 fair reasons for dismissal. The first one is conduct, and this is probably the most common reason for dismissal that we come across. And this is the person who has done something wrong. Maybe they've put their hands in the till, they've stolen from the business, or it could be language that they've used. It's something that they've chosen to do. It's an act they've done which puts them in breach of your rules. And that's where having policies, procedures to start with is really important, because then you've got rules that someone can breach that you can demonstrate they've breached in order to have a fair dismissal. Because a fair dismissal isn't just about the reason for the dismissal. It's also about following the right process and behaving fairly in that situation. So would it be reasonable for somebody to make a decision that dismissal is the right consequence for that conduct? And that's where, when you've got your policies that really outline what's expected, that's where you can fall back on those to demonstrate that, yeah, this is reasonable. It is what we do here. And we told people that if you cross this line, if you did this thing, you were going to end up dismissed. So conduct, that's our first one. That's your disciplinary procedure. So check out any videos I've got on disciplinary procedures for more details on exactly how you deal with that. The next fair reason is capability. And these are your performance or health reasons for dismissing somebody. So this is not somebody who's chosen to do something wrong, but somebody who's just not capable of doing the job. And this is where absence comes in. So if somebody's not turning up to work enough, or they are long-term off sick, they may not be capable of doing the job simply because they cannot be at work. Now, there are, again, things around being reasonable, being fair, allowing somebody a fair chance to recover if somebody has a disability, making sure that we've put reasonable adjustments in place to enable them to be capable of doing the role, making sure that we've given people the right training, the right resources, all the things that they need to be able to do the role. But if we've done all of those things, then we can follow a capability procedure and we can dismiss because they're just not capable. And it's why that understanding the reason for the problem is so important, because if we understand why somebody is absent, or why they're not performing, or why they're behaving in a certain way, we can identify whether it's a conduct issue, a capability issue, whether it's an issue that can be fixed or really does need to result in dismissal. And then our third fair reason for dismissal is redundancy. Redundancy is not about the individual. This is where the job role has gone. So if you've got somebody who's not performing, we need to go down either a conduct or capability route, not redundancy. And I get this question a lot. Can we make someone redundant so we don't have to make it personal? But we are going to need to recruit to replace. And the reality is that's not a redundancy situation. Redundancy is where the job is no longer needed, or it's no longer needed in the place that it is, or it's not as big a job as it was, but it's about the job. It has nothing to do with the individual within the role. So knowing which one we're falling into is really important, because that defines whether it's a fair dismissal, because we've used the right reason for dismissal, the right process in order to get there. And the next 2, we don't come across anywhere near as often as those first 3, but we've got statutory restrictions. So this might be somebody who loses a driving licence and they're a driver, for example, loses the right to work in the UK, loses the right to operate in the profession that they're in because of a registration, a body or something that stopped them from working there. And then we would have to dismiss because we can't employ them because the law says we can't, because they don't have whatever sort of legal thing it is that they need to be employed. These situations, we should be looking at whether there's alternative work. So we would look at, okay, this driver's lost their driving license. Is there alternatives? Is there something else they could do that doesn't involve driving? Some situations that would be possible, we could move them into another area of the business. In others, it just wouldn't be possible. And then we've got a fair dismissal. And then our final one is some other substantial reason. Now, don't be mistaken to thinking this is just that catch-all that we can shove everything else into, and then that gives us any reason for dismissal. We like substantial is the key word here. So it is a catch-all. It does give us those things that maybe the law didn't think about. And I think this is why we can say that the law does work for employers as well, because we have got this reason, this some other substantial reason. But this some other substantial reason, as I say, it is substantial. It is the really strong. There is no other option for the business but to dismiss this person, is the degree to which that substantial reason needs to be there. But it is a reason. It is something that we can use. As I say, we don't see it very often. What's crucial is that once you've got your reason, you follow the right process. You make sure you've documented everything. If it's a conduct issue, you've done the right investigation. If it's a performance issue, you've done the right things to follow up on the performance, to make sure they've had the right training, the right support, you've had the conversations, and that all of these are documented. But the right process and procedure is absolutely key. If it's a redundancy, have you gone through consultation? Have you looked at ways to avoid this dismissal, to see if there's other alternatives that you can use? If you're not sure of the right reason for a dismissal, either comment below your situation or book a call with me. I'll happily talk it through with you, and we can advise you on the right process. And that's the key bit. So once you've got your right reason, you need that fair process. And this is how you're going to avoid an employment tribunal claim. And so often people come to me too late to get advice. So they've already made a number of mistakes, which are harder to call back from, which is why getting HR support early on in these processes is so important. So on top of getting advice too late, other mistakes that I see that I don't want you to make is firing somebody on the spot out of frustration, just telling them not to come back again. Don't do that. That is going to lead you into a problem with an employment tribunal, and it's going to be very hard to come back from. Skipping steps in a process. So people come to me too late, which means they've not followed steps. We've got to go backwards. We've got to try and undo and unwind. That's really hard to deal with. And then also ignoring the wider context and potential legal protections someone's got. So, for example, if they've got a disability, we've got to make sure we put reasonable adjustments in place. If they're pregnant, then we need to look at the protections for pregnant employees, particularly around redundancy, or if performance capability issues or absence are related to the pregnancy. Those are going to impact how we deal with things. So when you are seeking that advice or looking at how you deal with things, make sure you take account of the wider context, because it has a huge impact on how we deal with things. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't deal with it. So if, for example, somebody has a disability and the reasonable adjustments are not enough to make them capable of doing the role, we could still dismiss. If there's not reasonable adjustments we can put in place, then it could still be that we can dismiss or withdraw a job offer if it's before employment. But we do need to make sure that we can demonstrate what we did, why we did it, and that we did the right things to get to the decision that we did. If you've come to this video because you've got that problem person, that you are trying to work out how you deal with this, you're spending all your time thinking about it, worrying about it, talking about it, then do just book a call with me and we will work out the exact steps that you need to take and make it simple for you. This shouldn't be causing you a headache. It shouldn't be soaking up all of your time and energy. We can work with you to solve it.